Okay, so we're here talking with Rob Benefer.
Always an absolute pleasure to jump on the channel.
Splendid. And we're going to talk about Rob's version of D&D. And we were talking just before we started recording. This all came about because I was talking to a few different people about how they sort of started in D&D and how they started playing the game. Because let's face it, D&D is like the gateway drug into role-playing games for a lot of people. When I was talking to Matthew about it, he was like, "Are you trying to say that like D&D is like the weed of role-playing games?" And I was like, well, it kind of is, to be honest. It's the one that most people are familiar with. It's the one you start with, you know. And I know a lot of people are like, "Oh, well, I don't do D&D anymore. I've moved on to other games." But it's the starting point for a lot of us. A lot of us still love it. There's many and various different editions that are liked or despised by different people for different reasons. So I thought it'd be interesting to chat to a few different people about how they started with D&D, what version they went in, what they like, what they don't, that sort of thing. And as one of my favourite people in LARP, certainly, and other role-playing, Rob, you were sort of top of that list.
Thank you very much, sir. I greatly appreciate it. Always a pleasure. Likewise. But yeah, no, it's definitely a interesting subject to come onto because, as you say, it is often the gateway drug. Even though it wasn't the first tabletop I played, but it was probably the first one I'd had a elongated campaign in.
Oh, if you don't mind me asking, then what was the first RPG that you played?
Randomly, it was Conspiracy X.
Oh, I've never actually played that myself.
It's not the most streamlined system, but I randomly got like. Basically, the person who I was going to be playing Warhammer with at a Warhammer club didn't turn up. So they just said, like, do you want to jump in on the table? So ended up going into Conspiracy X. Then Cyberpunk 2020 was the next game we moved into, and we did like a few sessions of that. But then we went into a long form D&D campaign. So.
And what edition of that was that? A D&D that you were playing?
That was the definitive edition, John. It was the 3rd edition of Dungeons and Dragons.
Well, I think you've answered my next question, which was going to be, what is your preferred edition of D&D? So I'm assuming it's version 3, edition 3.
Yeah, obviously there were no strong opinions from anyone about the best edition of Dungeons and Dragons. No. It's always quite a moot point, so really. But
you're a little bit younger than me and John, as I remember, but
yeah,
not
correct.
Much.
It's had a hard life, love.
This means
had a really rough
you
paper
must have
round.
started playing quite a lot later in your life than me and John did. Because I was 12 and it was AD&D, and then 3rd Ed came out when I was working at the roleplay shop, so I was like 16, 17 when that first appeared.
So I was probably 12 or 13
right
when I started, and 3rd Ed was like the new hot thing, so it literally only just come out because I remember we have one of those D&D one of those DMs who's just like, we're going to learn as we go along kind of thing, and we have to kind of like we all end up buying a Dungeons Master's Guide, so we're going like, okay, well we'll proofread what we're going to do as we go.
Those of us working in the roleplay shops very much appreciate those kind of dungeon masters.
Yep, for sure. But yeah, so we all kind of like learned it together, which I'm sure you'd agree, John, is probably one of the often the kind of the reasons why people have a preferred version is it's the one that you were kind of originally brought up in.
Yeah, I think that's a very valid point. 'Cause, I mean, bizarrely enough, although I had like a few sort of AD&D 2nd edition books, I didn't really start playing a lot of D&D until 3rd edition came out, because then, like you say, there was that whole like D20 explosion of stuff, and it was the new hotness. Everyone was getting on.
There was a point where we were playing D&D 5 nights a week and Vampire 3 nights a week. We were doing D&D and Vampire on one night, you know?
I remember those days fondly as well. I say we were D&D, Cyberpunk and Vampire were our 3 main rotations.
Yeah, I think there was a Deadlands game in there somewhere too.
Yeah, I remember Deadlands as well, and Hong Kong Action Theatre.
Yeah, which I've had the fortune of playing with you running, which I very much enjoyed.
Yeah, and but I did actually play some 2nd edition games because we had that overlap. We had another DM that wanted to jump over, but he wasn't as au fait with 3rd edition, so I got the joy of working out my THACO, and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's nice to have dabbled in both, and I still have a lot of respect for 2 and 3. we'll leave how I feel about the other ones going forwards, because I have a feeling there's going to be questions related to that later on.
So what can you remember story-wise or character-wise from those first campaigns?
So
I have a very solid memory of the first campaign that I played, and absolutely none of like the next 15 years worth.
yeah, so the first campaign I played a half-orc barbarian, because I didn't know what I was doing, and I was like, oh, half-orcs are pretty massive. I'd like to, because I was one of the bigger guys out of the friendship group, and they were like, oh yeah, you should play a half-orc, and I was like, well, what are they suited to? And they were like, oh, barbarian. And I just kind of like was like, okay, teach me, senpai. I'll tick through and just fill out whatever you say.
Yeah, yeah.
And also the Thump Monkey classes are fairly easy and fairly straightforward for those people who are trying to learn the game and go forward and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty sort of standard approach, isn't it? I know I tend to do it myself. Like, if I play a new system or a new game that I'm not familiar with, I'll be like, right, what's the straight fighter equivalent? I'll play that. I'll play that for a bit, get used to how the basic game works. Then, like, your second character tends to be when you're like, oh, these wizards look a bit cool, or like, oh, I like the look of these thief abilities, or whatever.
Well, I definitely, like, in our friendship group, it's definitely kind of pushed me into how the role player I am now, because now I will very rarely play a straight Thump Monkey thing, because I used to play it fairly regularly in the friendship group, and they always used to take the piss. Because they were just like, oh yeah, what's Rob going to be? Oh yeah, barbarian, half-orc. And I'm like, yeah, okay, fine.
I
he's
love
going to be
playing a Thump Monkey.
Exactly. I still take great joy from it.
Maybe it's because I'm a skinny lass and I will never, ever, ever get to do that in real life. But playing that massive Conan barbarian type character that can just literally smash someone down, it's a great joy to it. That's one of the things about tabletop. And
Absolutely.
I know John loves getting to play like a slutty woman with like a really high charisma character sometimes.
Go play to your strengths, you know.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no. So I very much have like a lot of fond memories of being that playing through that half-orc barbarian. There was the DM was a guy called Luke, a very good friend of mine. He's actually moved away now, but we've recently reconnected. I'm running a vampire game for him after not seeing him for about 15 years.
Oh, nice.
He ran a game where we had to get the Dark Angel sword. It was the MacGuffin in the campaign, and we were trying to stop a necromancer from killing the world.
You never catch me running a campaign like that.
If it's been done well, then why not?
Yeah,
I say that knowing full well I'm running a Wolfrup game at the minute where like one of the group are trying to stop a necromancer. It's a classic. If it ain't broke, don't fix it, you know.
Absolutely. It's like saying if you're going to be on first level, you're not going to fight any kobolds or goblins.
Or you're not going to have like a tavern keeper as well. I've got rats in my cellar. Can you let us
Exactly. Everyone's got to deal with rats in the basement.
Okay, so we've talked about you've played a bit of second ed, played a bit of third ed. Did you get into like the 3.5 or did you?
I did dabble in the 3.5 because one of our more well-off friends got the 3.5 books. But honestly, for me, I found that 3.5 had such minor changes from 3 that I didn't want to invest all that money because I'd got all the books by that point. That I didn't want to be like, right, okay, I'm now going to lay down another 200-300 quid getting all those books for something that effectively is just like the same thing with the numbers.
Most of it the same artwork as well.
Exactly. Except for with that big garish gold plate underneath the bottom of the book going like 3.5. Like, okay.
So, did you do any D20 variants at the same sort of time? Because obviously there were like a million different games that were the D20 version of.
Yeah,
and then
so
there were hundreds of other companies that were making stuff for fantasy Dungeons and Dragons games. He's got the Star Wars.
I did the Star Wars.
Very first D20 book into Spirit Games. That was.
Yeah, that was. We
Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, we got well into that as well because it was effective. I think they went so popular and they got on so well because everyone knew how to do third ed, so you could be like, it's just third ed with reskinned with Jedi or with whatever, and like it'd have little tweaks to it, but the core of it was the same with like stat skills, blah blah blah.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that's something we're now starting to see with the latest edition of it, obviously, because they've I think the current like 5th edition, I think they've made like the rules available in like a Creative Commons license or something after that whole like OGL fiasco. And
Yeah.
so I think that we're now starting to see a lot of companies who are also, like you say, going, oh, essentially this is 5th edition, but it's reskinned for X, Y, or Z. So a lot of people are like, oh, well, I fancy trying something a bit different, but I either can't be arsed or I don't want to go through learning a whole new system and getting like a whole new everything for a new system.
Which is nice in some manners, because you can jump into a game straight away and go like, okay, I really want to play this. As you say, you don't have to go, oh, I'm going to have to learn the entire books. But I really loved how unique each game felt by the style and like rule set changes.
Yeah.
Like if you have a big handful of D10 and you're rolling something for a vampire, you're like, oh yeah, I'm playing vampire. I know exactly what I'm doing. I've got dots rather than numbers. And I know it's a really dumb thing to say I've got dots rather than numbers, but it felt a lot more different. And likewise with Cyberpunk, with the D10 system rather than that. Again, it's only a dice change and a couple of little tweaks, but it just gave each game a bit more character rather than going like, this Dungeons and Dragons with a new skin on it. It's Dungeons and Dragons with a new skin on it.
Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, there are advantages, as you say, of having like a set game with just like lots of different wrappers on them, but it's sort of you're either limited by the original rule set and you don't want to move too far away from that, which sort of limits the flavour and the depth you can get on the game, or you end up changing it so much that like beyond a certain point, I'm like, wow, if you've changed it that much, you may as well not have just done your own game.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
absolutely.
there's lots of games that, like I'm a big fan of like the various like Power by the Apocalypse games and stuff like that, and they're all very, although they technically have the same system, they're all very specifically slanted for like the particular type of game that they are, based on like the playbooks and the moves and stuff you get to do. And I always like that because they're, in a way, they're great. So if you want to play like a game like Scum and Villainy, which is essentially, you know, you're the crew of a starship going out pulling heists in like a Star Wars-esque universe where like the serial numbers filed off.
Yeah.
It's great for doing that. However, if you want to do anything outside that, it's not going to cover you there. Whereas I think the advantage of having a sort of a slightly more generic system, for want of a better term, is if you go, oh, I want to play D&D 3rd Ed, but I want to bring robots into it. You can do that, whereas you struggle to do that, I think, with some other systems.
Yeah, absolutely. It kind of sings to one of the other D&D versions, which I'm not as big a fan of, and that's one of the reasons why.
Oh, is that the edition that dare not speak its name?
Actually, no.
Oh, okay.
I mean, don't get me wrong. That one should be left in a basement to die, because, well, we'll say 4th edition was it was a lost board game that tried to get up itself a little bit, and it just after how, because even from 2 to 3, you could see the linear progression. You could see like what they were doing with it. It felt like it was a similar game and it was all right. And then when 4 came out, you were like, oh, cool. Well, you know what we're going for, and what have they done?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's few people who sort of argue with that because, I mean, well, look at what they did with 5th edition when they were like, oh, let's forget 4th edition and we'll try and like go back a bit more to what we had on the previous editions.
Sure.
See, with 4th Ed, the one thing that really stood out as being very different was this fact that, like, it was all based on how close you were to other people, how close you were to the monsters, and having powers that boosted other people depending on your positioning in relation to them. There were other factors as well, but that's what it seemed to come down to for the most part.
Yeah.
Because that was so complex to work out, it made the combat drag on forever.
Mm-hmm.
But also, we were talking about this the other day, you get the one thing that the bard does is boost other players.
Yeah.
So if everybody boosts other players, the bard doesn't do all that much. The one thing the cleric does is heal other players. But with 4th Ed, everybody had some means of healing. Everybody had some light magic.
Yeah, because we're essentially saying, when me and Hannah were chatting about 4th edition randomly the other day, we're saying that because everyone had like their special things as like powers in 4th edition. We're saying in other editions, one of the things about the mage or the wizard, whatever, your spellcasters, is that you got the spells and that made them different from the other classes. Whereas
Yep.
when the spells were powers and everyone had powers, it sort of felt like everyone was sort of a mage, really, and the mage sort of like lost its unique flavour.
Everyone got the participation trophy rather than actually going like, you're the winner on this particular thing. Yeah, no, absolutely. I say fourth edition was a very good board game,
Yeah.
but not as good a role playing game. And as you say, like with the mage and the boosting and all that kind of stuff, like when you're just tracking it, whether it's on a piece of paper with a pencil or on Roll20 or on a table with miniatures, you can track that stuff like easy enough. But when you're doing it with everyone, and it just becomes such a task, and it takes away from all the rest of it.
Yeah.
In my personal opinion, of course.
Yeah, of course. And your personal opinion is what we're interested in this episode. So you were going to talk about another version for I sidelined you. We talked about fourth edition. So what's this other edition?
It's fifth.
Okay.
I have played a few games of fifth. I haven't played loads. In fairness, one of the few games I played was actually with yourself, where you kindly ran a game for us. And I find that fifth, there's a lot of heart been taken out of it, in my opinion. Like it's a really great game to introduce people who haven't played like tabletops before, because it is really simple to go duff duff duff. There you go. That's your character. You're set and ready to run. And likewise, you have select your parts of your backstory and all that kind of stuff, and it kind of like pre-writes your backstory, which I always think for me is a bit of a backward step, because one of the things I used to love with third ed is arranging my skills and stats and my backstory because of the character I've made, if that makes sense, rather than making the character to write your backstory.
Yeah.
So it just feels, and don't get me wrong, I'm not gonna say doing loads and loads of maths in third ed is great, but because it like that side of things can get really heavy and can bog you down, especially if you're not a person who's au fait with those rules. But I think once you do get that, you can kind of get a bit more out of it than fifth ed, in my opinion. I find that fifth, it holds your hand a bit too much, I think.
See, the one game I played of fifth ed, I saw no discernible difference, but that was pre-gen characters, so it was just as it was, you know.
Yeah.
So, do you GM or play, or a bit of both, or more one and less the other?
Or do you wear the mantle of the forever GM?
The crown is heavy, John.
It's a noble profession.
It is.
Many are called, few are chosen.
I have played in odd games. In fairness, me and you, John, have kind of like periodically went, would you like to play a session? So yeah, like other than the odd sessions I've had run with John, and now and then I'll have someone that will step up to run like a one shot or something like that. Most of the time I haven't been in a regular game as a player probably for 10 or 15 years. Outside of, I'd say the
one or two shots and stuff. Yeah.
The one or yeah, because like with me and you, I think we only did probably up to like 4 or 5 sessions.
Yeah, that's about right.
When I was a dwarf dying in a mine.
Indeed.
But yeah, so yeah, no, I'm normally forever GM. I do love to play, but it's just not always possible, unfortunately.
So, as somebody who GMs quite a lot,
yeah,
how would you go about planning an adventure for D&D? Like, for myself, I'll often start with a map and a list of who's who, and then I'll work out what are my bad guys doing.
Yeah.
And then I just let the players intervene as they bumble around the place.
So for me, since I was 14, I think was when I first ran a game. I actually did a homebrew world. That's like same as everyone's homebrew world. It's D&D, but just with like some different maps. But I have populated it as my parties have played the game. So whether it's like I've had probably 5 different sets of parties playing the games, such as yourselves. You guys helped me play test one of the sessions I was running for some streamer group that I was DMing for. And what I do is I pick an area of my map that I define as like what's going on there, and like whether it's feudal knights or whether it's kind of like more fantasy mountainside or like a dwarven hillside or the main theme of that area of the map. And then I will try and put like a basic story in there. But I'll more say like explain about that area of where I'm going to put the players, let the players build their characters, and then see what I've got and pick from the players little threads for the story and be like, oh, okay, this person's said this sad thing happened to them in a tower. Well, I can plop a tower there, and over the years since I've been 14, I've basically just populated the world by kind of having the players. So when I can have one group that are like, oh, we well want to travel over here, and then I could be like, oh, well, there's actually a mystic tower here that's been fallen over for about 5 years, and it kind of adds like a little bit of depth to the world without actually me having to do loads and loads of like, okay, I've actually populated every single piece of the world myself. Sometimes it's like the players of other games who have populated that bit of the world for me.
I think that's a cool idea. I mean, it's something I'm trying to do myself at the minute, because when we finished our Wolfrup campaign, we're going to be doing some Shadow Dark, which is sort of like, it's loosely based on 5th edition, but it's like more sort of old school leaning. And Johannes, when I was sort of talking about next games, was like, oh, why don't you revisit the campaign we did in those like last couple of campaigns? So I'm sort of trying to expand that outwards, but sort of have like different continents for like sort of different themes that we can then sort of go, oh, well, we'll now look at this little part of the world. We've explored the frozen sort of like mountain wastes. Now we'll look at this like southern jungle continent or whatever, you know.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it's a really good way of doing it, because there's nothing worse than like getting to a village and then going like, what's the name of the tavern? You're like, it's this. Okay, what's the name of the guy that works behind the bar? Oh, God.
That's what I've got random tables for, man.
Whereas in my games, the pub is always either called the White Hart, the Red Crown, or the Black Stag. I can't even remember why that was the names of the pub in the first game I ran, but because I've got those 3 pub names locked, I either say to the players, what's the name of the pub? Or I tell them it's one of them.
Well, I now know that I need to fit in 3 different tavern names in my next campaign. I've got to have the White Hart, the Red Stag, and the Crown.
Yeah.
They've all got to be popped into there somewhere now. But yeah, obviously there are certain times where you have to kind of like generate that stuff. But in times where players are like, oh, I want to go over here, and you can just go, oh yeah, actually, this is the name of the barman. This is his wife. This is the complex relationship that he has with his daughter who lives in this house. And there's a pork pie man because another party really got obsessed with buying pork pies one time. And it just kind of like, it just means that you've kind of got like a deeper wealth of stuff rather than having to just kind of like go over the same generic.
Yeah, I do think it's
generating
nice
stuff
when you've got those, like you said, those little sort of idiosyncrasies that sort of they seem odd, but there's a reason for it. So it sort of makes your campaign world it's not just generic fantasy campaign world. Because in a generic, choose your example, in a generic fantasy campaign, well, you wouldn't be like, oh, there's just a random guy walking through like selling pork pies, because it's an odd thing. Like if you've got like a new group of players who aren't aware in the background, they'll be like, well, what's this dude walking through like selling his like wares for? And it just makes that little bit of extra interest. I think that's really cool.
Yeah. I enjoy it. There's also there's a random village called Milford that was all about the mill and the wool export. One of the parties burnt it down, so another party turned up there and was like, "Oh, hi, we're here at Milford. What's your main export?" And they're like, "Oh, the mine." And they're like, what?
Weirdly, I did a game in a village called Milford last year that was also partly revolving around the dye factory that was running from the mill. Yeah, it's an obvious title for a village. Yep. There's a mill, there's a ford.
I mean,
Milford.
It does give you the excuse to say, "Oh, there's trouble at mill." So
yeah,
that
trouble at mill.
Okay, so in terms of GMing D&D, I assume it's mainly been 3rd edition for yourself. Have you tried GMing other editions at all, or?
I haven't ever GM'd second ed. I've always had like one of my friends who was a year above me, so that's why he was kind of like still like stalwart second ed. I've got the old big white monster manual up there somewhere.
Oh yeah, I've got a copy of it on the shelf.
Yeah, yeah. So he's always run that kind of stuff for me. Yeah, I've run third ed. I just skipped over fourth completely. And as I said, like, so 3.5, I was like, I don't need to worry about it. Fourth came out, and I was like, you know what? I can still carry on. I'm in the middle of campaigns right now. I'm not going to go, oh, they've released a new game. I'll instantly throw everything I've got in the bin and re-roll it on this new system. I'll wait and see how it sounds. And then I played like a couple of little games in it, and heard some reviews from some of my friends who were playing it. And I was like, oh, maybe I'll give that one a little miss. But as for five, probably another reason why I've probably got like a slightly dimmer view on five. I have got five, and I have run a couple of campaigns in five, but only like shorter running ones.
Yeah.
And I'm more specifically got kind of badgered into using five rather than third because they've been watching Critical Role,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
they were like, well, we want to run it in five because that's what they use. And I'm like, okay. Which never is kind of like the thing where you're like, oh yeah, that's a great thing for me. Sure, I'll go out of my comfort zone because you want exactly what you've seen on another TV show from professional voice actors. No pressure at all. I'll do my best.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting.
Heavily edited TV show with professional voice actors.
Well, yeah.
Exactly.
I mean, I think it's interesting what you're saying as well about when 3.5 came out and you were like, oh, I don't really need to like jump on board with this, you know, I'm in the middle of the campaign or whatever. So I know a lot of people are sort of saying that about the most recent version of like 5th edition they've sort of re-released, the like 2024, 2025 version, whatever they're calling it, where a lot of people are sort of like, well, I'm halfway through a campaign with like the previous version of 5th ed, don't really want to like change rules halfway through a campaign.
Yeah, and honestly, it's also like the money involved and all that kind of stuff to have the physical books and all that kind of thing. It's a big upheaval and a big stress, especially when, even if it's tweaks to other certain rules. Because I always find that if there are good rules in other versions, you can always just ad hoc them in
Yeah.
to be homebrew within your own ones. Like we do short rests in third ed, so they can get some like spells back and bits and pieces and stuff like that. Because in third ed, also, you don't want to have the people who are like, oh, sorry, you've been injured by that one goblin. It looks like you're going to spend 3 months recuperating, eating pies at this one place.
Although the pork pie man would love it.
Yeah, the pork pie man, he's making a mint.
I'm just noting this down because there's definitely going to be a pork pie man showing up in my next campaign.
I'll be listening. I can't wait to find out. I'll get my NPC spreadsheet and I'll find out his name for you, John.
Nice, I appreciate it. Oh, that's a dangerous thing to say. NPC spreadsheet.
Oh, well, that's the thing. I say, when I populate all these people, I actually have like tabs which are the villages, and I'll just populate the people as I go, and I'll have like who they are, where they are working, and what they do, their race, a prompt for their accent as well, where I can be like, oh, that guy's elderly Jean-Claude Van Damme. This guy is like Cornish man #1.
So I've seen something similar. I've seen John do with index cards where you've kept track of. I'm no good at that kind of thing. I try and draw myself a chart at the start and just fill it in by hand as I go along. So if I do it on the computer, it'll take too long, and I won't keep up with it.
Whatever ways and means you have of doing it, like it's the great thing with DMing. That you've got 100 different ways of doing it, but no way's wrong. It's just like whatever way flows best for the DM.
I mean,
for me, all I was gonna say was for me, for the DMs, the NPC spreadsheet literally came about because my players started taking like absolute litigious notes and were like, "So I'm sorry, I thought that person's name was Sarah, not Sarah." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay, fine, I'll make a spreadsheet." So no, I think you'll find she's actually married to Paul, who is the old mill man who doesn't have a job because the mill burned down.
Yeah, I mean, this all neatly sort of segues into the next bit I wanted to talk about, which was, how you prep. Hannah's led into that with how you prep, how you store your notes. I mean, I love like updating my notes and all that, so I've got into using a piece of software called like Obsidian Notes, where you can like store it as like markdown files, and you can like link between notes and whatever.
You have told me of this black magic before.
Well, but
it sounds really, really good.
It's great, but it is like an extra time investment. And as you guys were saying, it works for me, and I enjoy that. But I'm no means under the illusion that it would be for everybody.
Yeah, I find that I've got a lot more enthusiasm in that half hour before a game to draw up a chart that I can fill in as I go than I have to then copy up any notes that I've made onto a spreadsheet or keep up with them as I'm trying to keep track of the rest of the game. On the other hand, I would love to have just a massive spreadsheet that I could call on. I just wouldn't keep it up to date, so it's no good for me.
Yeah, no, that's more than fair. More than fair. I've been trying to convert mine onto Word Anvil, actually, in terms of the maps and stuff. And Word Anvil I found better for. They have the timeline feature and things like that, so I can actually track when stuff's happened in timeline wise, which is really useful. But then I have the NPC spreadsheet for the other bits and pieces. In terms of prepping for a session, I have the spreadsheet with all the names and stuff on it, and for like X campaign, I'll put a tab on there and I'll write the main story beats that I think they'll probably end up hitting. So I'll be like the starter village, the first campaign, the first dungeon, the first little piece that they'll get to. They're meeting a specific NPC that they need to meet because he's going to be an utter bastard later on, etc. But I'll leave the rest fairly fluid in the middle, because, as you know, John, sometimes you'll set that massive, big red flashing sign up and say, like, here is where you need to go. And they go, I think we prefer to investigate the pork pie man. And you're like,
Yeah.
Sure, okay, well...
I mean, there is something shifty about them pork pies.
Godfrey.
Godders, yeah.
Literally, I was running a game for him once, and it is literally because their group had amassed such an amount of gold that I was like, oh, you know what? On the road they're traveling on, I'll put a manor up for sale. That is like a good chunk of their gold, but they can afford it. It also gives me a way of fucking with them in the future because I can mess with the manor as well. But there was nothing dodgy about the purchase. It was just like, here's a manor. It's quite nice. The person who had it died, and the party just went off on one. Like, they were like, this is clearly an evil demon butler
who's secret rooms.
Exactly. And they spent like 3 sessions looking around this mansion, and I was like, guys, you're on your way to save this lady who'd been kidnapped by goblins. She's probably dead now because you're checking the wine cellar for secret doors.
The thing is, I mean, look on the good side of that, though. If you've got like your map of the manor house prepped, like that's 3 sessions where you effectively have to do no prep.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, you can do that kind of stuff. In terms of maps, though, I'm not sure, like, for the manor house, because I wasn't expecting to go into it, I wouldn't necessarily have a map prepped for that. I'd normally have Theatre of the Mind for that kind of stuff, and then it'd be maps for specific villages if they want to go and have a look around somewhere so they can see what's in the village to go and visit. If there's any dungeons or any places that I think there's going to be a fight breaking out, I'll do a little map of and that kind of stuff. And I do like to do handout, like letter handouts and stuff. If people are getting a letter from someone, I like them to have it as a specific handout. That I use Canva.
Yeah, I use Canva.
Yeah, I use that to just like knock out handouts and stuff like that. And it also helps me keep track of the handouts as well, because there's nothing worse than writing a note of what someone's got and then handing it out to them and not having it and then going, oh God, what did that lawman say that they had to do again? I can't remember. So having that saved, like, because I mainly use Roll20 nowadays because, as I said, because it's a combined world, I can kind of just have them all in the same Roll20 and just hide them from each other.
Yeah.
Which is quite funny sometimes when they'll log into the page and they'll be like, who are they? Why are they fighting a werewolf? And I'm like, don't worry, just close that page, don't worry. That's not for you to worry about.
I've got to admit, weirdly, when it comes to VTTs, I've sort of gone. I sort of originally went to the level of like, oh, I want to get one that does everything. You know, you can have your character sheets in there, you can have your maps, you can have your handouts, you can do all this, that, and the other. And I use like Foundry VTT for ages, and that's quite involved. There's a bit of a learning curve on it. And now I've gone fully the opposite way, where I'm like, right, I just want the simplest VTT I can get. I've got all the character sheets in like on like Google Sheets effectively, so people can access them.
Yeah.
All I want the VTT to do is I can drop an occasional handout in it. I can move some tokens around on a map. That's pretty much it. And I've been using one called Owlbear Rodeo for that, which is just like dead simple. Even like a calculator with like a browser on it can like run it.
I just use Discord.
Yeah.
90% of the time it's pen and paper and hold it up to the camera.
Yeah. Like well, I suppose on that side of things as well, it depends on the players you're running with. Because some of the players I know, I wouldn't even have to hold it up to the camera. I'd just be like, yeah, I know that person has legit rolled, and they've made a character to the rules rather than trying to like fudge it through. But yeah, I think for me, I use Roll20 more because especially when you have problematic players, John. I don't know whether you ever have this where you have the druid who has all the different summoning spells.
Yeah, they're always
you're like,
summoning animals.
oh, cool. I'll keep track of the 15 owls, 5 squirrels, 3 badgers, and a bear. And someone's now used the bag of many things to summon a rhino. And having something where you can go, this is where they all are, is great.
Yeah.
Rather than theatre of like my theatre of the mind gets clogged. I can't remember where the pigeons are attacking. So
yeah, I mean,
it kind of like fudges everything down a bit.
I think I've sort of tried to reach a bit of a halfway house with that, where like say sometimes if I need, like you were talking about maps earlier, and sometimes you don't have a map of a specific area. I think if they go into like a city or whatever, and I've got a city map, I can do that in Owlbear Rodeo. Whereas the main screen I've got, it's just like a parchment background. It's like got a dividing line, and it's like player characters, non-player characters, and like last session in my Wolfrup game, there's like 3 players. They're fighting a dozen skeletons that like a necromancer summoned up, and there's like the necromancer himself. And I was just like, right, okay, you're in like a ballroom in a mansion, describe what was in there. And then I basically just like drop the tokens on this parchment so you can see like where everyone is in relation to each other. And that did perfectly well. We didn't really need the whole map of like the manor room they were in.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I have a parchment page on my Roll20 as well, where I'm just like, oh god, I didn't realise they were going to be attacked at this instance because someone's antagonised someone. I could just chuck tokens on there and talk through it. So, yeah, like some of the sessions I've like played, some of the best sessions I've played have all been theatre of the mind completely. You don't have to have the fanciest maps. Sometimes I just think it's nice to do, especially if you've got players that aren't necessarily as experienced. I tend to find that sometimes theatre of the mind is something that's a learned skill. Whereas sometimes you have to, like, if they don't know what like portcullis at a castle is, they're like, oh, what? And I'm like, it's this bit. Being able to point on a map and go like there, it's really handy sometimes from that side of things. And likewise, to give them a little bit of spatial, because not everyone can kind of go, oh, okay, I'm in a 50 by 50 ballroom. Not everyone can kind of like instantly go, I know what 50 by 50 would feel like. I know how much space I've got to do it. I remember my wife, Wendy, played an Aarakocra in one of our games, but she was forever like, I'm going to fly. I'm like, you're in a very tight corridor in a mine. I'm going to fly. Like, you can't open your wings. It's really like 6 foot wide. Well, how big are my wings? Okay. Well, so to have the map in that instance, go like, there you go. There's your wings.
Yeah.
This is if the corridor isn't as wide as them, you're going nowhere.
One other question I was going to ask.
Of course.
You were talking about the sort of world that you've developed in game. Is do you ever use sort of like pre-published adventures or like pre-published supplements? Because for myself, I'm quite happy to admit I'm a bit of a sort of magpie when it comes to even creating my own campaign worlds. Like I'll be like, oh yeah, I wanted to have like a big city here. Oh, I remember I saw a city in like a supplement I've got. Oh, I'll tweak it a bit and I can drop that in here. rather than do it all from scratch. Do you ever use like adventures or like supplements like that?
I tend not to pick whole supplements out and things like that. More than anything, because I find running a supplement sometimes a bit restrictive, especially more for me, because I'm fairly heavily dyslexic. It means that I've got to do a lot of pre-reading to find out what's going on in the campaign. Otherwise, you end up in one of those campaigns where the person goes, I would like to walk through the room, and you go, okay, the room has, hang on. You're trying to like catch up to where the players are. It just slows down the actual run of play. For me, I've been in some games that have been like preset campaigns. There was the the night below, I think it was.
Oh yeah.
Which is one of the ones I've been playing with the guy who we're doing it in second ed still.
Yeah.
Because he's also like, I've got second ed, I don't need to change. So I've been running through him, and I really enjoyed that as like a preset campaign. He's run it really well, and I suppose it gives a level of comfort for him. He hasn't got to kind of go out and do prep. He's got handouts in the books. He's got everything like maps ready and all that kind of stuff, which is, I can definitely see big bonuses. For me, I will more cherry pick bits out of campaign. Like if I've been in a campaign, I'm like, oh, that was actually like a banging bit of story. I really loved that. I'm gonna pick that up, and I'm gonna pop it in my campaign somewhere like that. Like maybe it's just an NPC or an interaction or part of a story or something like that. Like I'll be like, oh, you know what? That's definitely going in.
Yeah, I mean, I think even if you do use like pre-gen sort of stuff, like predefined stuff, there's still like a large amount where you have to like fill stuff in and make it suitable for your game. I mean, I know, and you still make, well, you know, my memory is shocking. So, and like the sort of main Wolf game at the minute I'm running is like the Enemy Within campaign, which is like the first time I've run like, I mean, it's like a 5-book like campaign, and it's the first time I've run like a full like big sort of pre-defined campaign. And there's been a few times where I'm like, oh, like you were saying about the NPC names earlier, where I've like told them like randomly the wrong name. I'm like, well, that NPC is now called this rather than what it says in the book.
Yeah, Paul's become Steve.
Yeah. Or like you say, there's bits and pieces where the players go off in some direction that obviously hasn't been anticipated in the book, and you end up like freestyling it anyway and trying to fit it to sort of your game or just reacting to what they do.
Can I counter ask a question to
of
you?
Course.
Then, John? So if you were in that system, because obviously I haven't got too much experience of running pre-booked campaigns. If you were running one of these books, what happens if the players go completely off the rails of that campaign and head off in a completely different side direction? Would you try and steer them back in, or would you let them just freestyle?
I prefer not to steer them back in, because one of the great things about TTRPGs for me is that, and I've always held to the fact that like the story of D&D is whatever the player characters end up doing. It
Absolutely
doesn't matter, and that I try and do this in like all roleplay games, like Wolf or whatever. So if like the book adventure that I'm running says, oh, you're going to go to the evil castle and confront Count Von Nasty and like defeat him, and then you guys are like, oh, actually we're more interested in the pork pie seller. Who, to be honest, I feel like we should be getting a sponsorship for like pork pies.
Yeah, Melton Mowbray, man. Yeah,
that's it. I'm definitely having an NPC called Melton Mowbray in a future game. But I always feel like the idea should be, if you go off and say, actually, we're more interested in this, that's what the players are interested in. So if they're more interested in like the main, some side plot than like whatever's going on in the main thing, if it eventually comes round to it sort of organically, I'm fine with that. But if you're sort of, whatever the players do, effectively that's the players telling you, this is the bit we're interested in. So if you go into a city and the players are all like, oh, what's going on with the Thieves Guild here? What's going on with this? I'm like, oh, you're interested in like thieves and sort of like the criminal underworld. I'll make a note of that. And sure, if I can drop some stuff in that links to the main plot that's also to do with that, great.
Yeah, because sometimes you can generate interest in your plot by doing that, where they're like, oh, we're going into the Thieves Guild, and you can be like, oh, actually, I can just plop a couple of thieves in the bit that I was going to use anyway, and have them kind of like organically connect back into the plot line, etc.
I mean, it's like my second Wolfram game I'm running at the minute, where they're trying to defeat, like, for some of the squad D LARP guys, actually, they're trying to defeat this evil necromant, ancient lich who's like rising up, sort of Christopher Lee Dracula style. He is called, trying to put him back together. You know?
Love it.
And but the way I tend to look at it is, I'll sort of come up in the background with going like, right, okay, this is the rough timeline of this like lich being like resurrected. And when he's resurrected, he's planning on raising his undead armies and like marching across the map or whatever he's going to do. And then that will be sort of, unless the player characters interfere with that, that will be ticking along in the background. So if the player characters go, oh, actually, yeah, we're gonna go and explore and do something else, I'll be like, absolutely fine. But like the necromancer will carry on like raising his undead armies, and at some point in the future, they'll start hearing about, oh yeah, like a few villages have been like burnt to the ground by like these undead hordes or whatever. And if they still don't want to get involved with it and carry on doing their own thing, that's great. But all these sort of things will keep sort of ticking along in the background. Yeah. And then you might end up with an entirely different campaign based on how that's running. So they eventually find themselves like, oh, actually, there's only a small amount of the area that's sort of free of undead intrusion. And like we're encountering more and more undead as we're sort of moving about the country and whatever. And I'll be like, and if they still don't want to get involved in it, that's absolutely fine. It'll just keep running. It'll just keep running as they're doing it. That's roughly how I try and do it.
Yeah, no, I kind of figured that would probably be the case, because I'm very much the same as well. I think the player's will has got to be the most important thing. If you aren't letting your players go and do whatever they want to, you're probably failing in a certain respect. Now and then you have the odd player where you're like, okay, that one player is trying to do a lot of stuff that's probably going to do something that's going to damage the enjoyment of the rest of the party. But yeah, if you can give them collectively what they want and let them have a good time, and more importantly, make the actual players feel like heroes, I think that's an important thing to do, where you've got to try and make sure that they're actually like the heroes of the story rather than... one of the I find the bad tropes I remember from DMing back in the day and other DMs back in the day is, in the early doors, you always try and throw in like big NPCs who are really heroic, and you end up kind of like more writing cutscenes for the other players to watch rather than actually them being the heroes and like winning the day.
So I can see that we're getting to about 20 to 10 now. And we're probably going to want to wrap up soonish.
No, I'm good.
And it occurs to me, Rob is well known for telling stories that start a particular way.
I am.
Which is this one time in Lincoln.
Correct.
But how about you tell us a story about something that's happened at your D&D table that was fun, and start it with this one time in D&D. And we'll make
this
it
one
a
time in
tradition
Milford.
for the wrap up for the episodes.
Oh, okay. So
You got to have at least one really good D&D story.
yeah, absolutely. I'm just trying to think of one specific like moment that's really tickled me. We had this one time on a ship between Talos and Hominar. The player party they'd actually skipped a good like I set my game into chapters, and then I have like little subheadings in there where they're gonna hit the story beats and stuff. And I was like, so to get from this place, you have to go to reforge the MacGuffin. You need to get to the elven city of Talos. And they were like, yeah, sure. And I wrote loads of story beats of what they were going to do on the road along there, because there was all sorts of interesting stuff that had been populated on the map. And they were like, well, why can't we just go on the boat? Oh, yeah, there is sea there, yeah. You could just get on a boat. Great. I'll just try and have to figure out a story for them to go on the boat. So they got on the boat, but the port they left from was a evil aligned city. So they were a good aligned party. They had a real bad time. They were not kicking off there, but they had to kind of like endure being around all these evil folks. So they got on the boat, and the boat had a lot of nefarious people in there as well. And in there was intermingled. There was a vampire on the boat. So I was like straight away like, right, I'm gonna like Voyage of the Demeter, like get this stuff going. They have to try and figure out who the vampire is. So there was a lady called Lady Pitlockery, who was quite secretive. She kept sneaking off to her room. She wouldn't really interact with the party too much, and kept being kind of like standoffish. The fighter just took such great. She's like, she's definitely the vampire. She's absolutely definitely the vampire. She stepped out of her quarters and just like took it upon herself, and she's like, I'm going to swing my great club at her. He was like, have I hit? Right, this is my damage. And I'm like, correct. Okay, the broken body of this lady slams onto the wall as you hit her in the armor that is her nightie. And they were like, oh God, it's not Lady Pitlockery. She's not the vampire. So they ended up healing her up. And then they were like, right, we need to find out who the vampire is. And they got into their thing where they were like, okay, is there anything that we could do to like find a vampire? And I was like, throwing in some little flavor in there. I was like, okay, if you put silver on their skin, it'll like blemish up. You'll be able to see it. So they and they happen to have, because I'm sure once you have a player party in D&D running around for a certain amount of time, they have bags and bags of just detritus.
Tat.
Yeah, and one of the items they had was a silver comb. So they just kept walking around the ship combing people's hair. And then they were like, okay, we're going to have a meal with the captain because we're important people on the ship. We need to comb the captain's hair. and they kept like really awkwardly being like, we're going to comb his hair. It's like, he's not overly keen. He doesn't really want it. And then they were like, can you comb your hair? And he's like, no, I don't want to. I'm not going to. And he got kind of like a bit standoff, like a bit aggressive with them about combing his hair. And they were like, and they did like a perception check, and they were like, I'm like, yeah, he's hiding something. And they're like, he is the vampire. He won't let us comb his hair.
Was it a toupee?
It was a toupee. So yeah. So they ended up like on the main bit of the ship, going like, "You're a vampire." And it was like, "I'm just bald." It was a good time. It was a good time. Yeah, that was a really nice, unexpected, amusing situation for them to try and vampire hunt incredibly ineptly across the sea.
Love it.
Did they eventually catch the vampire?
See, they froze the vampire, who turned out to be like one of the little boys who'd come on the ship, and who they instantly pack bonded with, and was like, he's definitely not a vampire. They magically froze him because they were like, maybe if we take him to some mage, we can have him fixed, because we don't want to just murder this kid. And they had him magically frozen. They had him in a block of ice, and they put him on the port on the side, and they forgot about him completely, and they left to go to the next place, and they just left this vampire frozen on the port.
Ice, just left at the docks.
Absolutely, Jasper was just left on ice at the docks, and I had him stolen. And they went back like 2 months later and were like, "Where is he?" I'm like,
it's been 2 months.
Sorry, your Amazon package has been stolen. So, yeah, it was a good little side quest.
Nice one. Thank you very much for joining us, Rob, and talking about your D&D. One last thing I'm going to ask you is,
of course,
if there was, obviously we know that 3rd edition is your edition of preference. If there was anything you could change about D&D to make like Rob's perfect D&D for you, what would it be?
So what would I tinker with in 3rd edition to make it?
Or what are your current house rules, if you are using house rules at the moment?
So current house rules, we have put in death saves, because unless it's like thematically like the player has like, I'm going to sacrifice myself, or something like that, I've put in death saves because the whole... I think sometimes players have got to have a little bit of space to make a mistake, not necessarily like too much, because if they're going to go level 1 and go and fight a hill giant, they're going to find out where it's at. But if they've just kind of like misjudged something completely, I want to give them a chance to kind of get out and not necessarily bin it just on a mistake. So yeah, death saves we put in there as house rules. Short rests, as I said. And just generally like up in the time between healing, so they don't have to have like 6 months out recouping their broken leg. And other than that, I think Third Ed like it's pretty peak. John, there's nothing that what you don't change perfection.
Fair enough. Okay, so before we wrap up, we mentioned streaming earlier. If you want to plug your streaming channel, etc., please feel free to do so.
Thank you very much, John. Well, if you want to come and see me, I am on Island of Rob on Twitch TV. And likewise, if you want to come and see me running a game, there is also Twitch TV / the Vikings of Twitch. Oh, it's VOT. And I'll be running games for the rest of my streaming community on there. That's actually the session that you guys play tested. They're still not out of the starting area.
You mean you haven't like stealth recon it like we did?
No, they didn't. Like, so yeah, for you guys in the podcast world, John, Hannah, and everyone absolutely smashed the entirety of what they've got to go through in like 3.5 hours. Perfectly done. It was delightful. But you definitely helped me like stress test it.
We'll get all the links off you for your places you can be watched, and we'll put them in descriptions on this wherever we post it.
We'll put them all in the description down below. So if you're interested in seeing Rob run some games, obviously the Viking of Twitch, and if you're interested in seeing him play a lot of computer games, I particularly enjoyed the Baldur's Gate playthrough with the bear.
Harsh run through.
That's one of my personal favourites. Obviously, you can see him on Island of Rob on twitch.tv, and we'll put all the links in the description down below for this episode. So thank you very much for joining us, Rob. Always a pleasure to chat to you.
Likewise, thank you so much for having me. It's always an absolute joy to just get to chat, role play, and talk stuff through my friends. It's good.
Indeed, and we'll stop the recording here.